everyone, welcome to What the Trans.
What the Trans?
Yep, it's us. Thank you for joining us. I am Ashleigh and with me is Alyx.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's another Thursday afternoon. My flat is going really nicely. We're so
Good.
close to completion right now. We're on the last small laundry list of things to do.
Excellent. So I've seen some pictures in the chat. Your kitchen's looking pretty lush.
Yeah, exactly. It's got this green look, which I'm sure Flint is going to be very
much so.
Yeah, it's. I showed some pictures to my colleagues as well. I mentioned that it has this traditional but modern look to it.
Ah, fancy. Well, for me, I'm just glad you've now got a toilet.
Yes, that's been a great relief to me and anyone who's been working in my flat, so we didn't have to offer a shuttle between.
Yes. Yeah, I guess you've got to try and find a pub or a petrol station that's open, I suppose.
Oh yeah, that might be. Oh no, it's further from my flat than it is from my old place, so it's not even nearer to a pub.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, I was about to say I think that's all right for you, but I kind of forgot. I kind of forgot that you in fact do drink, because I don't, and I just assume everybody else doesn't, even though I know that's a ridiculous assumption.
No, definitely, it's quite the reverse.
Yeah, quite. I remember what happened the night we first met.
Oh no, I do. Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised you do.
Yeah, I think Abigail Thorne might remember.
Probably remembers as well. Yes, indeed.
I can't believe I was able to operate the camera equipment when I was at that level of drunk at the time.
Yeah, you were pretty smashed. I was just like, Ashleigh. I was just like, Alyx, hand me the recording equipment, please. I don't trust you to hold it.
Yeah, I just. That was brilliant. Yeah, but that's.
It was a good play.
Yeah, it was lovely. There's also another one happening in another place. It was
there
in
is
Transjoy.
Nottingham.
In Nottingham, that was it. I've been hearing some rave reviews about that one.
As have I, but we'll come back to that in the Transjoy section.
Oh, it's on there. Nice.
Yes. No, I do my due diligence when I'm putting together the Transjoy. Highlight of my fortnight is putting together the Transjoy, to be honest.
So yeah, that's been my week. So how have you been? There's been a few
It's been up and down. Yeah, it's been up and down. We'll get on to that. But the up that I want to talk about is what I mentioned last time Flint was on the show, which is Clare Obscura Expedition 33, which is available on Game Pass. And just to get it out of the way right now, I love it and you should play it, right? I think my comment about it being the most Frenchest thing that ever Frenched is still accurate, but they know that. There's these bosses that you can go and fight that are mimes, right? So they're called a mime and they've got a beret and a stripy top on. And if you defeat the mime, you get a beret and a stripy top and French accessories for your character, and the costume choice is called baguette, right? So it's very French, but they know it, and it's just brilliant, right? I've not played turn-based games before. This is, in fact, my first. I started with Persona 5, but I just watched Lexi play it, so I was like, actually, I'm a bit bored of this now. But yeah, Clare Obscura, it's just fucking wonderful. The story, it gets you right in the feels. It made me cry several times. One of only 4 or 5 video games to ever manage to do that. It's wonderful stuff.
That's brilliant. I thought you were going to say this villain was hilariously French and had a baguette sword and garlic grenades or something.
Well, interestingly...
Oh.
No, so not the villain, but what you can do is if you play through the game and play it on New Game Plus, if you've done a couple of things in particular right at the very start of your first playthrough, you can get a baguette as a weapon.
I was almost there with my prediction. That was almost perfect.
Almost. Well, as I say, they are super French and they know it, and it's awesome. Yeah, Je suis... No, I don't know. I don't know enough French, and I don't even want to pretend because it feels like it's disrespecting this amazing game.
Definitely, it sounds great because it's turn-based, and have you seen? Have you tried Baldur's Gate yet? I keep hearing some really good stuff about that one.
So I have started it, but I kind of bounced off it. But I'm going to pick it up again probably once I've finished Clare Obscura. In fact, definitely, because there is no time for anything else in my life right now. So, yes. However, let's get on to the other thing. And it relates to the time code that you may have noticed on the episode. So this week's episode is unfortunately a bit shorter. But before you punch the air with joy with me having said that, I'll tell you why. Obviously, we spend several days leading up to the recording of the episodes, doing the research, the writing, and interviewing for them. But this week was quite different. On Monday night, I had medical emergency, basically, which had me sat in A&E from about 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. And the next couple of days were an absolute bust. I was barely awake, never mind able to write a podcast. Even now, some days later, I am a bit out of it, and writing this short bit of text has taken several attempts. We have one news story to bring to you, then we'll talk a little more about the Green Party, then some trans joy, and then we're done for the week. We hope you understand and can appreciate that sometimes life doesn't so much get in the way as kick you in the fucking teeth. So, yeah.
Indeed.
Sorry, everybody, but also I kind of feel, I feel justified in my...
Yeah, we ticked off Ashleigh's sick note on that day, so she was excused.
I had my doctor sign it. In fact, there were 3 of them over the course of the evening.
Blimey.
Yeah, but just a quick jaunt into Action Alley, which is, of course, the Trans Solidarity Alliance's letter-writing campaign about writing to your MP on the new code of practice that Labour want to implement for employers for public spaces, which would essentially function as a bathroom ban for the trans community, right? They're using the EHRC as a blunt instrument. They are using it to institute what is functionally a bathroom ban. So I know you might not like your MP, I certainly disagree with mine often enough, but I can't overstate how important it is that we all make a load of noise, we all get in touch with our MPs, we try and do whatever we can to try and stop this regressive, reform-esque bit of legislation to go through, because it wouldn't go through the House of Commons, it wouldn't be signed off for in there and voted on, it would be just done as a kind of backdoor amendment to a law that's already in place. So we have to stop this. So please contact your MP.
But let's see how many letters we can send out.
Letters, emails. I mean, letters tend to be better. You tend to get more of a response if you send an actual letter, I am told.
Yeah, flood them with a river of paper, I think is... Yeah, I think we've seen us go 900 people out of the Houses of Commons, outside Westminster Hall. We've been out of tens of thousands. We're all... At this point, we could get to a point where if we do this right, we could easily get a good rebellion out of it, and be quite interesting in the Commons. It's very unpopular, so let's see how it goes.
It is very unpopular, yeah. So let's make it even more unpopular and make sure that they know that politically this would screw them. I mean, it would screw us, obviously, but it would not be popular. Anyway, onward. Let's do our one news story this week.
The government has released its new guidance for relationship and sex education and health education, or RSHE for short. The guidance just published will come into effect next year in September 2026. The last time the guidance was properly updated was in 2021, and the process of revising it began under the Sunak government in 2024. The latest guidance is different to the 2024 proposal and adds some neat things like suggesting that schools should avoid gendered language and stereotypes in order to combat misogyny. But overall, from a trans perspective, this guidance sucks. To give you a general sense of the changes across the previous versions, the new version, and a draft in between, here's a teeny tiny excerpt from each. In 2021, it said gender identity should be explored. In 2024, it said gender identity should not be taught. And in 2025, it said schools should not teach as fact that all people have a gender identity. And that's not meant in a cool gender abolitionist way, but in a cis people don't think about gender way. The latest version of the guidance is less explicit in its disdain for trans people, but gaining a Labour red coat of paint doesn't change the underlying nature of the thing. It's trying to appear neutral when instructing schools to only teach the facts and the law, but we live in a world where the fact of biological sex was invented by a lobby group. And this fact is in contest with the life's work of doctors, scientists, academics, lawyers, and people who have to live with the consequences of so-called biological sex. When it comes to teaching the facts, this guidance has decided that the as yet undefined biological sex is fact and everything else is subject to significant debate and not to be endorsed.
Paragraph 72 of the guidance suggests that teaching should not use cartoons or diagrams or materials that could be interpreted as being aimed at younger children or that might encourage pupils to question their gender. So that's a pretty broad scope on it. The vagueness of could be interpreted as sounds like the sort of thing that could create a chilling effect, or that might spill over into what's allowed in school libraries or what support can be given to trans pupils. It's already invited rather direct comparisons to Thatcher's Section 28, which was a vague restriction on promoting homosexuality in teaching, a restriction which caused a lot of harm and cast a long shadow, and I know I was there. The guidance as it is now is very concerning and sets a worrying precedent for the upcoming Guidance for Gender Questioning Children, which was similarly commissioned under the Sunak government. So, fun times.
Yeah, absolutely horrid. I mean, this whole Section 28 thing, it does seem very close to that in a way.
Oh yeah, like shockingly so. I have to confess I've not been through the whole thing. As mentioned, had one or two other things going on recently. But Sammy, who did sterling work writing this section that we just read to you, did, and I, trust the judgment on that. But it is so close to saying don't talk about trans people, right? It's a Section 28, but just for trans people. Teaching about, LGBT people, that'll be fine, but as soon as you add the T, that's when you could start having a problem. You could get in trouble with reform-led councils, with parents who don't believe that sort of thing should be taught. Seeing parents challenging school syllabus materials like we see so often in the US. It's leaving the door open for a lot of really, really, really unpleasant shit.
Yeah, Section 28 did cast a massive shadow. I think even in 2016, the latest when I was in school, it was just never taught that LGBT people existed, and that was long after it was taken out, but nothing was encouraging LGBT people to be shown. So even then, it's just crazy.
Yeah, so another letter writing campaign which we will share. I think rather than putting a big link, I'll put a link to the references that Sammy used for this story and a couple of other bits. But I think for the main Action Alley type stuff, I will just put that in the description. So wherever you might be listening to this, you can just go and click on the description and you can click on those links and be taken straight to what we're talking about without having to stop at our website first. So
nice.
Yeah, check me out.
Yeah.
And I do that every time, but then our description, or the description would be very, very long every time. So
oh god, yeah, the amount of links we use every episode usually.
Every single time. Yeah. There's dozens of them usually. Okay, so let's move on to the meat. Or, I guess not the meat, because once again, for another week, we're going green. So this is probably more of a
Lettuce?
nut risole, perhaps a nice roasted celeriac, or a nice chili made with soy chunks, which is what I'll be eating once I've finished recording this episode, because Lexi makes a damn good vegan chili.
We were on the next part of our Green Party election special. So we interviewed Zach Polanski, a contender for the leadership election, and his contenders, Ellie and Adrian, are also running their campaign, and just come up earlier today, in fact, are some comments from Ellie Chows.
Yes.
Yes, so in a Reddit thread, she said, "You mentioned prisons, and I think there are some limited areas of policy, like prisons, where the rights of some biological women and the rights of some trans women can come into a degree of conflict. That's what I meant about areas of contestation, and what I think nuanced conversations and individual decisions are needed so that everyone's right to live free from fear and discrimination are upheld." And this is in response to someone basically talking about how it's not okay for there to be a ban on gay people from being able to access changing rooms and being put in the prisons of their gender.
Indeed. But she also, in the East Midlands Green Party Conference of 2025, a leadership hustings between Zach Polanski and Ellie Chows, she said she actually praised the Supreme Court ruling and said that the critics of the ruling do not speak for all trans people, and she called for open conversation about the contested issue of trans rights. So if she's calling it a contested issue, she kind of indicates she's already quite far along a certain path. A certain path that might be considered to be critical of, let's say, gender, No,
definitely.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I suppose it depends how closely they are to the black hole of hate, if you know what I mean, because sometimes you get the event horizon where light cannot escape, and then you get people sucked in, just about able to get away. So, but, it would have been nice to be able to give her a proper long conversation about this in a format where because one of the questions we were going to ask was, if I do a crime, should I go to a men's prison? And she would have had to answer that, but in here she's trying to dodge it.
Indeed. And something else that she dodged quite recently was us. As we talked about last time, on our episode 2 weeks ago, is we just could not get an answer out of Adrian and Ellie's campaign. They set up a time and date for an interview with them, and then they messed us about, basically. And I wonder if there was never an intention to speak to us or with any, pro-trans, pro-LGBT, media group / organisation. So, if so, why not just say that rather than stringing us along,
No, definitely, because I emailed to say, hey, so they organised a date and time for an interview, then cancelled it, then said, hey, can I have your phone number so I can message you back to get another date in? And then they didn't message me back. And by the time that it was time to chase, the episode needs to get out soon. So we just did not have time for them as well. So they knew that if they ran the clock, they wouldn't be able to be on for an interview. And quite frankly, I'm not going to regret it, because we have some excellent other people who deserve the time more than Ellie and Adrian does, in my opinion now.
Very much so. No, I agree. So let's get started off, shall we? So, Councillor Annie Townsend, who is a councillor in Bristol for the Green Party, is one of the hopefuls looking to be deputy leader of the Green Party, and we had an interview with them, so let's play the tape. Hello, Annie Townsend. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Most of this episode's been focusing on the recent leadership campaigns and the recent competition. And from what I see, you've been looking to be the new one of the deputies for the Green Party.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm running for deputy. And the way in which our leadership works is that we have a leadership team of 3 people. So if we have co-leaders that we currently do, then we have one deputy leader. And then if we have one leader, which we may well get because Zach's a very strong candidate, then we get 2 deputies. And the other thing as well is that we have gender balancing rules so that then the 2 deputies, and also if it's a co-leadership team as well, the 2 leaders need to be of differing genders.
There's certainly been a bit of a stir when it comes to that particular rule, especially a legal lawsuit on those rules from some anti-trans members in the party, from what I could see.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was an article in Politics Home that referred to the potential of a legal lawsuit. Obviously, there isn't one yet because we don't have the result, and we won't have the result until September. Gender balancing gender balancing was brought in the first place in order to make sure that the leadership team wasn't cis male heavy. But that's the whole reason for it. And then what I found fascinating in the Politics Home article about it, which they asked me for a comment and I did give them one, was they're noting that terribly what could happen is that you could have a woman deputy and also a trans person who was assigned female also could be a deputy. Now, I'm the only trans person that is running in the deputy, so they mean me. And by their own transphobic rationale, I'm a woman, and therefore they're horrified that you could possibly have 2 women as deputies, which is a really interesting feminist stretch as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting flex. I have had a little grief about it on Twitter as well, that I'm disadvantaging men, which again is an interesting feminist stretch. Political parties are legally permitted to have their own policies and to implement their own policies, and so there's no actual legal case that prevents the Green Party from having gender balancing in the way in which it does its rules and how it runs its elections. Yeah, and we do gender balancing across the party. So there are a lot of committees and a lot of positions that have 2 co-chairs and they have to be of differing genders. That's quite common across the party and we're legally committed to do it.
Certainly a more balanced way of running things than some of the other parties do. So let's have a look at your campaign in particular. So on your campaign's website, it states that what counts is holding true to the Green Party's values. So how is your campaign helping to highlight that message and what that means?
Well, things that we stand for, and my particular slogan for the campaign is inclusion, integrity, and impact. And our Green Party values are about they're equitable, they're inclusive, they have social justice and climate justice and racial justice all intrinsically linked. And our policies embody that. And our policies, very extensive amount of policies, are about the world that we would like to see. And that is an equitable, inclusive one. And therefore, everything that we do has to also embody that. So we can't claim to be wanting to do and achieve one way of being unless we actually make sure that those principles and those values are there in everything that we do. So it's about making sure that the simple things like the meetings that we hold, are they accessible? Are they flat? Accessible for wheelchair users? Are they in a venue that makes all members feel safe and included? Are they in an alcohol-free venue so that our Muslim colleagues can join us? Are they at a time and a place where people with caring responsibilities can get to, people without cars, people who need to use public transport? Are they accessible? Are they inclusive? And I say that like as if it's a simple thing, but actually it's not something that happens all the time. And there's one of the reasons is it's about access to venues and it's about members prioritizing those things. And it's about the party as a whole, making sure that local parties had the financial funds to be able to do these things, because hiring venues costs money. So to make things accessible, it's slightly more complicated and more expensive than just going, let's go to the pub, which is what historically we've done. So it's that, and it's about making sure that with the reality of the power and influence that a deputy or a leader has within the party, is making sure that local parties get that support to do it, to the financial support to do it, and also the emotional and strategic support to know that those are the things that need to do and how to do it as well. So that's what a lot of it is about, and it's making sure that as we move forward, particularly as the Overton window moves to the right, that we hold true to our values, because it could be the most tempting thing in the world. And some of our comms have been quite moderate, trying to appeal to like the centre ground demographic, is that actually to go, no, our values are our values, our policies are our policies, and they are like that because that's how our membership and our members have voted for them to be. And that's what makes us different to the other parties. That's what makes us true to the left. And it's why we have achieved the electoral success that we have done so far, because we've kept true to those values. And the most powerful thing that the new to leadership team should be doing is making sure that we stay true to those values and don't get pulled to the right, and don't get pulled into being more moderate and playing it safe, because we're not in a world where playing it safe gets us anywhere. And we're also, the climate emergency and the social emergency, it's too much upon us now to play it safe. We haven't got time. It is immediate and it's now. And that's what the leadership needs to be doing.
It sort of shows a lot of Adrian Ramsey's campaign and trying to move things in a more centrist way, hasn't it? For his ones.
It has. And I think it speaks to the demographics that the two main candidates for the leadership are playing to. So Ellie and Adrian are rural seats facing Conservatives. They themselves are more Conservative facing, and that is the voter and the members that they are appealing to, and that's what, and they've got to do what they've got to do, right? But actually, in contrast, then you've got Zach, who is in London, member of the London Assembly, and appealing to the younger voters, the left-wing voters, the urban voters. And when you look at the highest vote shares, the places that we're doing well in this country, they are in marginalised demographics. They're inner city wards, like my own inner city. They're all of our top 40 second places in the general election. And I was a candidate for Bristol East, which was our highest second placed ranking in the entire country. It is a highly marginalised. It's got one of the highest rates of deprivation in the country. Very diverse demographic, very urban, very inner city. That's where our highest vote share is. Those are the residents, the people, the communities that we need to be looking at and focusing on and appealing to. And therefore, I feel very strongly that the leadership team that we need going into the next period of 4 years, I mean, the way which elections work, it's for the next 1 or 2 years, but for the next 4 years until the next general election, we need to be appealing to those marginalised, diverse demographics in urban locations, because those are the places that we are appealing to most, because those are the people that have, they're dealing with flooding in their own homes here. If they're from the global majority, their families from across the world are dealing with flooding and the impacts of the climate emergency. They're dealing with poor air pollution, poor quality of homes, poor social situations. Everything that our policies appeal to, these are the people for whom it's going to help the most, and who understand that and are increasingly connecting with that. And those are the people that we need to appeal to.
Going in a slightly different direction then. We have mentioned him already, but Adrian Ramsey has said that Green Party members who hold anti-trans views should not be expelled, saying that they have the right to express that view. So what are your thoughts on that?
The leadership doesn't have any input into the disciplinary committee. They haven't got any say. legally. That's how it should be. And the investigation into how Labour dealt with their disciplinary issues and expulsion of members also backed up the Green Party position of the leadership don't have any role in disciplinary action. That is the role of the disciplinary committee, which is directly elected by members, and GPRC, which are the Green Party Regional Council, who have the first, like the triaging of complaints, and they deal with the suspensions as well. And then there's the appeals committee as well. And all of those, the leadership team should not and have no sway or jurisdiction over it, and that's how it should be. I know that nobody has actually been expelled or suspended from the Green Party for their transphobic views in themselves. It's how they express them. And nobody has the right to express any view that they hold in a bullying or harassing way, or a way that harms other members. And those are the only reasons that people have been expelled or suspended from the party. And again, referencing the Alley versus Reason court case, it was found in court that political parties do have the right to expect their members, and especially their spokespeople, to uphold the views and the values of the political party that they represent. And that is something that I do support, because that's what we are here for. Now, as a councillor, as an elected councillor, I am here to represent the Green Party. And if I was deputy, then I'd be there to represent the Green Party and our values and our policies. And I would be expected to, and I would uphold those values, because that's what we should be doing. And I don't think that anybody who doesn't support our very core principles of human rights and inclusion and equity, and particularly our policies on trans women and women and trans men and men and non-binary identities are valid. If you can't support those very basic principles and policies, then I don't think you should be standing to be a spokesperson or an elected representative of the party in any way.
Another big story has been coming up about the political Pride party. The Pride's political party ban on multiple prides. What are your thoughts on those policies that's been?
Yeah. So actually, Bristol Pride could be very ahead of the field in Bristol. Bristol banned political parties, I think, about 3 years ago now, and some colleagues found it hard, understandably, but I think it was right, and they also banned the police in Bristol as well from marching. Not the ambulance service and not the fire brigade, but they did ban the police because police weren't doing enough. And shortly after that, I spoke to the chair of the LGBTQI plus police forum, whatever they're called, for Avon and Somerset Police, and they went, in a very rare case of the police actually being deliberately decent about something, went, yeah, fair cop, we're not doing enough, actually. So what we're going to do, said the police, is we are going to try to do X, Y, and Z, and we'll go back to them, Pride, in 9 months' time and go, have we done enough or have we not done enough? And I mean, the general verdict was no, they hadn't done enough, because actually it's a much bigger issue. But I thought that was a relatively good approach, rather than being like, oh God, we're better than the other political parties. Yes, okay, I think the Green Party are better than the other political parties on this, but we are still clearly not doing enough, because there is still a fair quantity of transphobia within the party, and in society at large as well. And I think it's also understandable that Pride as a protest, if you are going to exclude political parties, because as a whole, the political spectrum aren't doing well at all. I think, obviously, Labour are doing utterly terrible currently. Lib Dems seem to be doing all right. They've also got their own intrinsic transphobia problems, as we all do. But I don't think it would be particularly helpful for Pride to start then singling out individual parties as well, to go, you're okay, you're not, because actually no one's doing enough, and it's a sliding scale of not enough. But I think it's a very reasonable position for Pride to say, actually, no. And we increasingly need Pride to go back to being a protest and to be fighting more. So less corporation sponsorship, more actual protesting is definitely the way that I would like to see Pride going across the country, frankly. Pride was great in Bristol.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, glad
It
to
was
hear it.
funny. It was brilliant. I'm on the fire authority in Bristol now as well, so I'm going to a firefighters Pride breakfast. My girlfriend wasn't planning on coming to Pride, and then I was like, "Do you want to come to a fire station?" She was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'll come now." So suddenly much more interested.
What's the
Cool.
Can't
point for
imagine
fire
why.
engines?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, who doesn't want to go and have a look around a fire station, right? It's just cool. It's interesting.
Exactly, but with rainbow painted Nina, it's like brilliant.
Nice. Okay, so pulling it back a little bit more directly to your own campaign. In one of your leadership videos, you've mentioned wanting to shake the foundations of how we organize and how we win. So, could you walk us through with how you think that might be done?
Well, that was a particular nod towards what's called capitations in the Green Party, which is essentially when members pay their memberships, it goes to the National Party, and then the National Party gives a percentage back to local parties based on how many members that they have. Now, for the past quantity of time, those capitations have been held back by the National Party and not given to local parties, but used on our big target campaigns. And what that means is it's created an inequality and inequity in the party, particularly in places in the north where their access to big donors or to donors of any variety or any kind of fundraising is much more limited than other places. Now, I'm in Bristol, as we've clarified. Now, in Bristol, it's a cool city, it's a wealthy city, we have big donors. We also got our capitations, and it meant that we had a huge amount of money to spend on winning seats, which has resulted in lots of seats. We've got an MP, great. But then there's places elsewhere in the country that can't even afford to pay a deposit for an election. They have to fundraise that, and it's a significant amount of money to. You have to pay a deposit to run an MP candidate. You have to pay a deposit for a regional mayor, for example, and printing literature, printing leaflets, and having enough leaflets to deliver. Even if you've got the people to deliver it, even just door knocking, you need a calling card to say that you come, and that costs money. Now, if we're not funding local parties to do that, it really curtails their ability to get councillors and to make electoral gains. And we've caught ourselves into a bit of a chicken and egg situation where the National Party is like, well, you can't have money unless you can demonstrate that you can win seats, but we can't demonstrate that we can win seats without the money to put into. So that's happened because of the pulling back of capitation. So one of the things that I would like to see is more support for local parties in the form of actual financial help, because that goes a long way, and even a small amount of money will actually be kind of game changing for local parties, but also an equity of how we look at that, so that those parties that don't have access to the same wealth or donors that other parts of the party do are still supported, and then also to get support in terms of logistical support and graphic design support and all those sorts of things. And there are some things that are being brought forward, but we need to sort of step that forward, because there are communities across the country, particularly in the north, that are just ripe for picking to be green and to have green councillors, but we're not resourcing them to do it, and we need to resource them. And it's particularly our marginalised communities and our working class communities as well, and our global majority communities. And then also to listen to what people are saying on the ground. When I first joined the Green Party 15 years ago, we were lots of little different parties. Like Bristol was even split into like a North and a South Green Party. We were tiny, and it was just like a few of us around the pub table type space. Now, we all had autonomy, for want of a better word, but we weren't very kind of joined up with what other parties were doing. Now, it's been centralised, which is much better for a lot of things, but what it does is it removes that on the ground intelligence and on the ground knowledge and information. And what the National Party needs to be doing is returning to much more the grassroots of how we got here in the first place. And there's a middle way between that national level organisation support and on the ground knowledge and information. And we join those two together and we find the sweet spot. And that's what we need to do much more of, and making sure that local parties are fully engaged and have a proper voice in what they're doing.
On a bigger sort of lens of general party strategy, how are you considering increasing the influence of the Green Party in Green Party policies in general? What do you think needs to happen for it to become bigger?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what Zach's doing, and I know you've spoken to Zach as well, is that what he's done in his role as deputy is to unabashedly just go, these are our values, these are our policies, I'm standing by them, I said what I said, and is this. And I think that's what we need to do more of and really lean into, rather than going, oh God, I know I want to be a bit awkward, oh no, I want to be a bit more conservative or central ground or be a bit more moderate about it. Voters are more to the left than we generally give them credit for. And what we have increasingly is the noise of the right wing and the noise of parties like Reform, like Suffrage, like making it feel like people are much more right wing, a lot less compassionate, and a lot less empathetic than they actually are. Whereas people are actually, as a whole, much more aligned with our values and our policies. We just need to be brave enough to keep saying them and say them repeatedly, unashamedly, and loudly. And that, I think, will get us a long way. It's increasingly, I think, what has gotten us this far.
Yeah, for sure, I think. And I'm honestly, I am just glad to see a candidate standing up and saying all of the perfectly reasonable, rational, democratic socialist stuff that is not even particularly far left. Um, and I just, you have to have something that to try and stop reform and the Tories. God damn, can we not go back to those horrible people?
Well, I think on that point, though, about I did do a video about trans rights and our policy and like standing up for it. And it's extraordinary and infuriating that it's considered to be remotely controversial or radical to just say, our policy is this. And we have had our conferences and our meetings continuously disrupted by people who have an alternative agenda, which is one of sabotage. And, thinking the best of them, most of them probably don't even realise that that's what they're being caught up in doing. But there are a group of people within the Green Party who have dedicated far too much time of their lives to focusing on one particular policy, which is anti-human rights, it's anti-inclusivity, it's anti-everything that we stand for, but they've become quite obsessed about it, and it disrupts absolutely everything. Now, I used to be coordinator or chair of Bristol Green Party, and we were trying to win an MP, we were trying to win the council, and yet continuously meeting after meeting just got tied up with convoluted arguments, which were a very much veiled transphobic conversation in a very frustrating, we all know what we're talking about, but we're talking about it in veiled things. And it just eats up absolutely everything. Conference is the same. Like, we have got so many policies that we need to progress and we need to update at conference, but we can't do it because we spend the first session of conference arguing some kind of veiled pseudo war about trans rights through our soccer port or our whatever first part of the conference debate is, and it's sabotaging. And if you wanted to sabotage the most powerful force in UK politics at the moment for the left and for the environment, sabotaging the Green Party would be a really clever way of doing it. And that's what's happening. And I am very sad for our members who have been caught up in that. And it's something it just needs to stop. because there's not enough time for the planet, for society, for us to keep on doing that. The other thing I wanted to say as well is that for this leadership campaign, anybody who's a member of the Green Party by the 31st of July gets to vote. And I urge as many people as possible, if this is the sort of politics that you want to see progressing in the UK and in England and Wales, then join the Green Party. Please vote for me as your first preference. And to Zach as well. I'm not allowed to technically officially endorse him because of electoral rules, but it's quite clear, I think, who out of the leadership candidates are the most progressive. So join the Green Party, and then you get to influence the future of politics here.
So what did you make of this interview with Annie?
It was lovely. They were really good to chat with, and it's just refreshing to talk to a politician who's actually trans and not a cis person for once.
Right, and obviously we had the same observation with our next interviewee, but more on that in a second. But yeah, I agree, and they're clearly so seasoned, right? Because they've been in the Green Party and a councillor in Bristol for quite some time. So there is political experience there. There is kind of nous, and it was just, it was really good to chat to them,
Yeah, definitely. They were absolutely lovely to chat with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of people who are sort of very well practiced, let's cue up the Ash Routh interview, so let's play that.
So you're a stand-up comedian, and firstly, how did you get started with that, and how do you think this has benefited your political voice?
Well, strictly speaking, I mean, I have done stand-up, but I would say I'm more of an improv comedian than a stand-up. I've been doing improv for about as long as I've been actively engaged in politics, I would say. The obvious is it's made me an extremely confident speaker. I'm quite happy going on stage. I'm quite happy standing in front of a crowd, and perhaps more so with improv than you would get from stand-up, I do it without a script. I know how to entertain people, and I don't need to plan ahead to do it. I'm ready for curveballs, which I think a lot of people underestimate as a public speaking skill. I think is very important, especially in debates.
For sure, yeah, because in debates you won't necessarily know what questions you're about to be hit with.
No.
Or what crap gets said by the other opponent in a debate.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, but we can't spend all of our time correcting misinformation from the opposition because it's just a gish gallop. They can waste our time. On your website, you've got a quote saying that good politicians should be signposts, not weather vanes. Can you expand on that a little for us?
Sure. I think that there are some people who get into politics because they want to be politicians. And I think those people are really bad people to have in elected office because you don't know what they stand for, because in a sense they don't stand for anything. I have talked to people who unironically really care about their team winning, like it's supporting a sports team, and they don't really care what their team has to do to get there. I don't think that's very green, and I think it's a bad ethos for politics. We recognize a problem and we have to convince people to act on that problem. That is what we focus on. So we are trying to lead people to the problem, show them the problem, and convince them of the solutions to the problem. I'm not interested in changing who I am to try and make myself more palatable to voters. I'm here to talk about the issues that I think are really important, and when I go door to door and talk to voters, I am trying to convince them of that same thing that I am convinced of. I think that's really, really important. That's the way all politics should work. I think that all political views should be represented in the political field, and people in politics should be trying to persuade people, because that way, in theory at least, the best ideas are the ones that convince the most people. That's how it's supposed to work.
Especially, I think we've seen that as a regular theme through some of the other folks, like Annie Townsend the other day also mentioning the same thing. So I suppose to the next question, what's your experience being in the Green Party as a trans person?
Broadly positive. For a very long time, I mean, I joined the party way, way back, about 15 years ago. It was a non-issue for a large part of my time in the party. I would say about 2017 was the only time that people started really taking an interest in it. I didn't get into the Green Party to talk about being trans or being queer. When I was first elected as a councillor, I was mostly concerned with responsible housing provision and making sure that developers weren't building houses on floodplains. That was my bread and butter back in Lincolnshire. But it got to a point about 2017, I moved to Sheffield and people kept asking me about it. I couldn't go to meetings, I couldn't engage without it being independently raised. And so I was obviously happy to talk about it. At that point, I looked more at like equality and diversity stuff within the Green Party. I became the co-chair of LGBTIQA+ Greens. There was clearly an appetite to talk about this stuff, and I was happy to talk about it, so I did. For the most part, people in the Green Party, extremely respectful, extremely polite. I've had a lot of meetings. I've sat down with party members who just want to ask questions, gender-critical party members who have, concerns, worries. Sitting down over a cup of tea, I've done 99% of the time been totally fine, totally respectful, even if people have not necessarily agreed with me on something, they have done so sort of with kindness. There is a 1%. That's kind of the way it is. I've had people yell at me. I've had inappropriate contact, people trying to harvest information about me in ways that is slightly worrying. But for the most part, it's not an issue. I think one thing that can happen in political parties is that you have party members who are focused on the sort of the broad program of politics that the party is presenting, and then you get party members who are very, very focused on a single issue. And that's totally normal. I think it happens in every political party on almost every political issue. And I don't think there's inherently anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with somebody having a single political focus. I think the problem is that sometimes people, when they're so entrenched in one issue, can start to lose sight of the fact that people on the other side of the issue are people, and that they are people with feelings and, values and thoughts that might differ from theirs, but ultimately are, worthy of respect and shouldn't be shouted at or abused or yelled at. I've seen people get heated on issues that I'm less attached to. This just happens to be one that I'm quite intrinsically involved in, and so sometimes I've borne the brunt of it. I don't think it's representative of the party, though. I've been in the party for 15 years, and for the most part, members have been absolutely lovely to me, very respectful, very kind. There's always a few people, but I don't think that's an intrinsically Green Party problem. I think that's more of a society problem.
Yeah, I think you might be right. On the subject of people like that, there has been a recent legal challenge over the definition of gender when it comes to the party co-leaders being the opposite genders as each other, and people trying to kind of force biological sex onto that. What are your thoughts on that?
Our constitution is quite clear in terms of leadership that where we have gender balanced roles, whether that's a pair of leaders or a pair of deputy leaders, that they are of different genders. Doesn't use the word sex, doesn't use the word biological, says different genders. And that same clause specifically says where gender is self-determined. So it doesn't even say man, woman, male, female, sex, biological. It says gender and where gender is self-determined. So I don't think there's any legal challenge to be had. The Supreme Court ruling was explicitly about how we define things in the Equality Act 2010 and how we define sex, the protected characteristic of sex. if you actually look at our constitution, the word sex does not appear, the word biological does not appear, and the words man and woman do not appear. I think anyone trying to do a legal challenge will probably be told quite quickly by their lawyer, having looked at the constitution, there is simply no case to answer here. It says gender, which is self-determined. There is no possible way you could argue that, like, as being anything other than self-determined gender. So shouldn't be an issue. Anyone trying to pursue that is going to find themselves lining a lawyer's pockets and achieving very little.
What are your thoughts on Adrian Ramsey's campaign that seems to have a theme of wanting to push what he calls centrism into the Green Party?
You know, I was talking about being a weather vane. I think there's a need to be what we are. We are a very progressive party, a very proudly progressive party. And when you get down to our policies, very left-wing, very fundamentally socialist. You can't change that if you're the leader of the Green Party. Leaders don't get to unilaterally change policy. This isn't Labour or the Conservatives. Our policy is set by our members, and our policy is what our policy is. I don't know how any leader would propose to make us more centrist when members, when asked time and time again, have made it very clear that we're a very proudly left-wing progressive party. I don't know what mechanism he could possibly utilise to make that change. I also feels like that would be placing us in exactly the same political position as the Liberal Democrats, who already exist. So I'm not super sure that it would be politically beneficial either. Not that that's the be all and end all, but ideally parties should be differentiated. I'm quite happy with our position as a progressive left-wing party, and I don't think that should change.
Thank you, yeah. So how do you feel about Adrian saying that Green Party members who hold anti-trans views should not be expelled, saying they have the right to express that view?
I'll give Adrian credit. I think he said gender-critical views. I don't think he said anti-trans views. I'm very happy to sit in the party with gender-critical party members. You know, if you remember back in the run-up to the Brexit referendum, the Green Party was very specifically positioned as a pro-Remain party. There are plenty of Greens in the party that did not support remaining in the EU. I think they branded themselves as Green Leaves, which I quite like. They understood that they were in a pro-Remain party, and they were realistic about that fact. They focused on the many, many policy areas in which they agreed with the party. Part of the reality of being in a political party is that you're unlikely to agree with a party on every single issue, and even if you do, those policies are subject to change, and it's about seeing the big picture. I'm quite happy to have pro-leave Greens in the Green Party who are realistic about the fact that their view on this particular issue isn't the prevailing view of the party. And I think that cuts across every political issue. I've spoken to so many gender critical people in the party who are incidentally gender critical, but they are far more focused on being a good local councillor, being responsive to people, making sure that rent doesn't get too high. This is not a mainline issue for them. They are realistic about the fact that the Green Party is not a gender critical party. And every single time party conference has been asked through a direct or indirect route to make the Green Party a gender critical party, the response has always been quite comfortably no. I'm very happy for gender critical people to stay in the party. It's a broad church, it takes all types. Most gender critical people, lovely people, extremely respectful, not an issue, much like with any other issue. Pro-HS2, anti-HS2, pro-nuclear, anti-nuclear, I don't mind, as long as, if it's an area you disagree with, you don't spend all of your time, all of your energy trying to relitigate the same issues over and over again. The party should be able to make a decision on a matter, and that should stand, at least for a while. I don't have an issue with revisiting policy, but I don't think we should be visiting the same issues every 6 months or every 12 months at conference. The party's made its mind very, very clear on these matters. as far as I'm concerned, that's a settled issue. So if they want to stay in the party, more power to them. I'm happy to work with them on many policy areas where we agree. If they just want to keep relitigating the same issues over and over again, there are probably better political vehicles for them to do that in.
You're clearly a much more patient person than I would be in the same circumstances, I think, which is probably why I shouldn't pursue that. How do you feel about various, indeed all, political parties being banned from various Pride events across the country?
I understand it. It makes sense. There is no political party that is perfect on this front. And I think that a blanket ban actually sends a stronger kind of a message that queer people in the UK are not being properly and appropriately served by our elected representatives. I think that the Green Party and the Lib Dems, I don't think there's much in it, are probably, in terms of parliamentary representation at least, probably the best parties. But I think it sends a strong message, a clear blanket ban on all political parties. I think it's appropriate. I think it makes sense. I think it sends a clear message. And so I completely support it.
Everybody we've spoken to from the Green Party has got a really nuanced answer to that question, which I appreciate. So, good. You're thinking about these things rather than just towing a particular line.
What will you do to regain the trust of the Scottish Green Party so that the parties can work together?
I think we can work together quite well anyway. We work with European Green parties, international Green parties. We don't need to have a sort of constitutional tie to them. I don't think the Scottish Greens are about to start standing candidates south of the border, nor are we about to start standing candidates north of the border. I am a paid-up member of the Scottish Green Party. I'm not an active one. I just, I like to contribute. So I feel entitled to say this as a member. I think that the decision to disaffiliate, it was based on sensationalization of something without a very clear understanding of what was happening internally. The reality is that the Green Party as a mass member organisation has to conduct itself in a certain way and has to make sure that due process is shown in our governance. We can't just snap our fingers and change things. We can't turn on a dime. And we are a mass membership organisation. I think we've got 66,000 members at the last count. It's a lot of people. We have a lot of responsibilities. Things are going to be a little slow, and I appreciate that's frustrating. I would love to see the Scottish Greens reaffiliate, but honestly, it was an unusual relationship for the two parties to be constitutionally connected. I don't think there's actually much of an argument that it was necessary, and I'm very happy for them to be siblings in the same way that all of the other Green parties, most of the other Green parties internationally, are siblings to us. Not all of them. I don't think there's a strong need to change that, really. I think we already have the relationship we need to have with them, which is, I think, productive.
All right, so final question, the £1 million question in a way. How will you go about increasing the influence of the Green Party and Green policies in general? And what do you think needs to happen for it to become more popular?
I think that we need to rethink how we are challenging seats in Parliament. We currently follow a process which is extremely effective, which is slightly born of our initial, this is how we break onto a council, get that plucky first councillor in a council where there's never been any Green representation before. It works. It's very, very slow. It involves a steady, consistent ground game. It involves being able to move activists to help out with leafleting, with door knocking. In a city, that can be quite simple. That's just people getting on a bus and going to the appropriate part of the city or the town to do some canvassing, to do some leafleting. On a parliamentary scale, that's bussing people down. The problem we've got is all of our seats at the moment are south of Leicester. There is no real northern representation. which I think is a huge problem. I think there's a perception that we are a Southern-focused party, and we need to change that. And I think that there is a perception of us as a very middle-class party, which I think is not a one-to-one ratio, but I think they are related concerns. We need to be challenging seats in the north, but also we can't really afford to keep picking a very small number of seats and putting everything there and busing people in, because that way we've gone from 1 seat to 4 seats over the course of 15 years. If I generously assume that we're going to keep multiplying by a factor of 4, then in 15 years, we're still nowhere near government. In my lifetime, we're not going to form a government. And in order to enact the change that needs to be enacted today or earlier, really, we need to have a realistic plan to get into power quickly, within a parliament or less, ideally. And much as I hate to admit it, the party that we should be taking hints from is Reform. They are consistently leading in polling. They are currently looking very likely to be able to potentially just outright form a majority government. And their ground game is extremely poor. They are not very well equipped. They don't have years of campaigning on the ground behind them. It's why we've had all these headlines of councillors having to resign. It's very funny in a way to see how poorly they planned. But if you look under the hood, what it shows is that these were people that they didn't expect to win, who've been winning all over the country, which is its own kind of problem for Reform. But it shows that just on their message, just on their brand alone, they're winning these seats. They're not winning them because they've been knocking on doors. They're not winning them because they've been leafleting. They're not winning because they've been talking to people. Just their image is enough to win them seats. That's where we need to be. And the way they're doing it is populism, which a lot of people associate as a right-wing ideology. What it really is people being tired of what they perceive as a group of elites, which within politics is Labour and the Conservatives for the most part, the parties that have led, essentially every government in living memory. That is what people are tired of. That is what people are moving away from. It's why we've seen Reform Green swing voters, because they see us both as radical alternatives. The fact that we're radical alternatives who are complete opposite ends of the political spectrum sort of doesn't matter. They just want a radical alternative. We need to get where Reform are. We need to get a brand strong enough, messaging strong enough and clear enough that we can win seats where we haven't actually done that much work. That's the strength we need. That is what we need to emulate. So we should be spending the time between now and the next general election studying what's made that possible for Reform and doing what we can to become a left-wing eco-populist party.
That was a lovely interview. How do you think that went?
Really good. So they're very well polished, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They kind of have had time to think about a lot of the things that we asked about, and we weren't sending the questions over in advance. I think if they'd asked us to do that, we'd have probably had to think about it and say probably no, but equally. But yeah, obviously very knowledgeable, very well thought out on each of the positions that they expressed. And again, yeah, really good candidate. And Sheffield is all the richer for having them, I think. So yeah, fingers crossed. The leadership we see from the Green Party is Zach Palensky and 2 trans people.
That would be one.
Because
hell of a good one.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, indeed. Although I get that would still be 3 white people. So.
Shit, good point.
I know, but still, hopefully one of them makes it through into being a deputy leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. Now, dear listener, if you are listening to this on the day that we release the episode, it is today, the 28th of July. If you want to participate in the Green Party election and you want to look through the candidates and you want to, submit votes for any of the people that we've spoken to or anybody else that you might want to, as the candidates have all said, you've only got a few days to do that. At the end of this month is your deadline to joining the Green Party to be able to have a say over its future. You might not want to. That's fine too. You might be asking why we've spent 2 episodes talking about an opposition party that aren't really wielding any political power, and that's fair as well. But equally, I have taken a certain amount of hope and optimism from speaking to the candidates that we have, particularly, well, honestly, all 3 of them, but particularly Zach Polansky. I think he'd be a tremendous leader for the Greens. But then that's just me and my appreciation for democratic socialism, really.
No, exactly. I think for me, to be fair, for the 2 episodes, it has been fascinating to dig into some of the politics inside of the Green Party. So we fortunately had some really good help with sourcing of information from members inside of the Green Party as well. Some really key people to get us connections and access to where we need to go to get information. So just being able to dig into the stories inside of the Green Party was a good story to talk about. So I just want to thank the people who just got us that information and gave us the connections needed to do all the research for this episode as well, really.
Indeed, whose names we will not use because there was a condition of anonymity. Yeah, absolutely. Massive thanks to those people who helped us, do what we've done. Now, there is a little bit more to say, like in terms of the Green Party women, and there's like a nest of TERFs essentially within the party. We know that, we recognise that, but again, I've had a week, so I wasn't able to do the work that I normally would. So sorry about that, but blame my ailing body. So yes, you have a few days if you want to join the Greens. Now's your chance. So
for the Green Party women, yeah, I with my house move and such, I've just not had the time to jump onto stuff. But I think that's a topic that I will explore in another episode, because there's some interesting stuff there, and that's gonna come, I hope. But just give that some time. But in the meantime, as we said, next episode we're doing something a bit different, aren't we, Ashleigh?
We are indeed. So Flint will be back, and we're going to have a slight shuffle of the presenting team. And we're going to be speaking to someone who we met recently who's just absolutely fascinating. But more on that in a couple of weeks, and we really hope you enjoy it, because I know that Flint's been putting in a lot of work.
Exciting, and it's very... Yeah, and seeing some of the stuff they've put on, it's so exciting and brings a lot of joy.
Yeah, it is, genuinely. And it's, as you just said, it's an optimistic thing. It's not like we did a deep dive into this horrible nest of vipers shit.
No, that's my job.
That's our job, comrade.
Well, the Green Party women, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that thing in specific, I see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that myself. So, yeah. However, let's do the nice thing, and let's do some trans joy.
Yes, and to laser focus on the first bit of joy, Bonnie has got back from their first session of laser hair removal treatment and feeling great, and so happy to be ticking this off their to-do list.
Sylvexen said, bought my first skirt today in prep for post-op homecoming. I'm surprised you left it that long, but nice one. That's really cool. It's good to have gender-affirming clothing at long last.
Jez's trip to London for their anniversary and has been planned for many months now, and I've just found out that it'll be there for Trans Pride. Squee!
Woo! Awesome. Have fun. So Kane says, I'm about 1 year and 3 months on T now, and I look so much like my older brother. Oh my god, this stuff really works. My face has changed in kind of subtle ways, but they add up to this whole new face, and I look just like my brother.
It's either your brother, sister, or mother, or dad. It's never anything in between.
Yeah, it was my mum for me.
Yeah, I think everyone kept saying my mum when I had my hair down and everything as well.
I see.
Yeah, but moving on from that, Aaron went to a fantasy-themed festival today and got to wear an outfit that gave them euphoria and a pronoun pin, and everyone got it right. And all the staff had pronoun badges too, and it was so visibly queer and particularly trans people, and it was just so nice to see so many queer people in one place, particularly because I haven't been able to go to Pride this year. Everyone was so nice, and I've really enjoyed it. I also got a trans-coloured chainmail pendant, which is very cool.
Laura, Queen of Seagulls, says Leeds Pride was amazing today. First time attending a corporate/celebration Pride compared with a more traditional protest vibe. And I mean, yeah, they can still be fun.
Yeah, exactly. And Amy, I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier in the episode. So they had their first night performing Abigail Thorne's The Prince, and it went amazingly. You're welcome on the shout out on the last episode. There was a sold out theatre. Performances were dialed up to 11. So many laughs and quite a few tears, and some of the messages hit people really hard in a good way. And Kev Castle, a radio host and theatre reviewer, left a glowing review.
Yeah. It's always nice when you hear some really positive feedback on something you've worked hard at. And I know that I'm not sure how many nights you've still got to go. I think you still have a couple by the time the episode comes out, but I really hope they go well, and enjoy those final night vibes, because those are amazing. Okay, so Tony Widmo says, celebrated 11 years of marriage with my NB spouse Dana yesterday. They took me out for a meal, and a little later on in the same thread, the same person said, my spouse has had their research into gender-critical links to Russia made viral by Sophie Molly, and can confirm I read it. Excellent article, give it a check.
Yes, and Chris, it's mine and my husband's trans and neurodivergent bookshop's 3rd birthday tomorrow. Oh, that's awesome. We're celebrating with a craft fair and an art auction. Not an ad, just really excited about it.
Awesome. So Time, like the herb, said, Trans Pride Brighton allowed me to be my loudest and proudest self, and also go out afterwards in the knowledge I was in an accepting city. It was really nice not to worry and have joy.
Ah, that is great. And Laura again, the Queen of Seagulls, is saying that they were enjoying their first Pride season, and so far they've been to Notts Trans Pride, Leeds Trans Pride, Liverpool Pride coming up in a few days, and hopefully going to Manchester Pride perhaps too.
Woo! Enjoy, Laura. Queen of Seagulls. I can't not do it now. MX Spectrum. Mine. MX Spectrum says, the joy and sense of community I felt at Bristol and Brighton Pride, plus I'm going to start learning the bass guitar and hopefully start playing on the regular with a bunch of other trans people. And like, if you're a trans person and you don't play at least the bass guitar, what are you doing?
I don't know.
There's so many of us. There are so many trans woman bassists, including me, and I love it. It's just... It's an excellent instrument.
Gotta slap that.
Anyway, onward. See what you did there.
Yeah, so Brooks has been out for 1 year now, and over the weekend she took part in a vegan demonstrations as a milked woman, where I stood topless on a street in Paris with some milking equipment on my breasts. Big moment for a baby trans.
Honestly, I think that would be a big moment for me, and I've been out since 2012. That's quite a striking protest, yeah. I think. Eris says, went on an interrail trip with friends around Europe, which was super fun and a really great time. Love it. I love excellent stories of a well-run, well-considered rail network. I'm big on that.
And how much I wish for that in the UK.
I know, right?
Yes, and great. So next is Graham Joshua, who took their shirt off in public for the first time since top surgery 2 years ago and instantly felt more in community with everyone. It felt both totally natural and also very illegal. It wasn't. I'm self-conscious about my bad surgery results to my weight, but I think it was so good for me to be with people I knew wouldn't judge me.
Yeah. You'll love to hear it. Rachel says, I might have gotten my first girl clothes this month. They weren't the perfect fit, but was such a big step and unlocked something for me moving forward in journey. And yeah, I think the first girl clothes I got didn't really fit me either, but you kind of grow into them in a number of ways.
Oh, no, definitely. That's a big, that's a memory you'll never forget. And next up is Kit, whose top surgery results look really good, even only after 5 days.
Awesome. Alice, proper Nico, says, I got more comfortable in car trips and I got asked for ID last night and I'm like late 30s. And as someone who was recently in her late 30s, it's fun when that happens, isn't it? Trans women age backwards. Thank you, HRT.
Ooh. So Maddie next, she went to her first Pride and had a great time. Nice.
And Billy says, I'm moving into full-time femme presentation. Got an outfit for a wedding I'll be going to in October. Fabulous. Gotta love a good wedding because you get to wear something nice. In fact, you have to.
Got no choice. So next is Badger Girl. It said, this is all the joy I need, and a picture of a cute little cat.
It's a really, really cute picture. Love it. Jenny Richard says, hey, WTT, please give a big shout out to big sisters Leanne Summers and Sabrina Sertraline. Made great connections with these wonderful trans people through social media. It's getting connections between cis and trans. Awesome. Jenny Richard, of course, being Crazy Richard from our credits. Yes. I should read this next one out, because it's from a friend of mine, Katie Lou Chaos. Running into you at Sparkle for the first time in years brought me joy. Me too, Katie. Thank you so much.
And Fungal Art Person, one of our favourite people, went to a festival to volunteer with disabled people against cuts and made some very cool connections and new friends and made progress towards solving a big long-standing personal issue, and I've also got some cute new clothes and swimwear recently.
Indeed. Very good. Very good. Erin said, my wee band performed last weekend at a Pride not-profit event we helped organise parallel to Glasgow Pride. Really wholesome local community event with music and spoken word. We're next performing at Butte Pride. And this is another trans bass player and she looks fucking amazing and so does the bass. It's a really nice one. Good few pictures. Love a good gig pic.
Trans women egg bass guitars.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so next up is Joe, and they have some trans joy for you. They went on a charity shop gender hunt at the weekend and got called Miss. The quick correction apology doesn't undo the first impression. And I also went out the queer group and was pronounced to have fairly extreme feminine energy and gave big brother feelings to a trans masc friend.
So that's a whole load of things all in one go, isn't it? It's like I've got fairly extreme feminine energy, but also give big brother feelings to a trans masc friend. And just there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and that's kind of the trans experience. So awesome stuff. And Aura says, Trans Pride Brighton was ace. Also, I hit the 6-month mark on HRT yesterday. Congratulations, Aura.
Next up is Purple Lexi Face, who went to a group that I haven't been to since starting transitioning years ago. A lot of the people there are old or English isn't their first language, and they're not always getting things right, but they're trying their best.
Moore says, my partner and I are together for a year now, and we're going to a load of cool events in the next few weeks. It's always nice to have things to look forward to, isn't it?
No, definitely. And Gemma's having a week of trans joy after a brilliant Brighton Trans Pride, and I went to my daughter's graduation on Monday. Then on Tuesday, I went out for a drink with a new trans friend who was working nearby. Tonight, I'm having another friend over and we're getting takeout. We'll probably empty my wine rack if the last time is anything to go by.
Awesome. I miss wine. I really do. And finally, we've got Hazley said, wearing a dress today and it has pockets. I love dresses with pockets. Amazing. Best dress. So, thank you all for joining us. I'm glad you stuck with us right until the end for the Trans Joy, although listen through to some of the credits because the Ambers get really funny with some of the sound editing. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. More stuff next time in 2 weeks. But now Alex and I are going to go and enjoy basically a month off because we don't have to do anything for the next episode. So, Fun times. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes. This episode of What the Trans was produced and presented by Alyx and Ashleigh and written by Sammy and Ashley. It was edited by Amber Roberts and Amber Devro, and our opening theme music was produced by Waratsara Yui Karlberg, and our episode thumbnail was created by the Poapeers. Transcription performed by Sam Ryman, Rowan B, Rachel Aldred and Georgia Griffiths. And we would especially like to thank our producer level patrons, who are Kaylin York,
The Splund,
Tanya B,
Melissa Harker,
Tig Slater,
Willow_Tree,
Katie Cox,
Levi Hart,
Zoe B,
Mikhail Jarjour,
Danielle Hardwick,
Ocean,
Mel,
Heather Patterson,
Brianne O'Neill,
Toby,
Susan K. Quinn,
Undead Nafa,
Bex the Mermaid,
Hazel Dust,
Laura, Queen of Seagulls,
Becky Cheadle,
Jordan Starr,
Lee Downs,
Lindsay Cannon,
George Simmons,
Carly Silvers,
B Squared,
Smiley, friend of Candy from across the pond,
The Socialist Party of Great Britain, 1904.
Sarah,
Eris,
Tin Roof,
Naystrom.
Lex Phoenix,
Why is Murderbot so relatable?
Andrea Brooks,
Jack Edwards,
Dulcie,
Orion Matrix,
Now Art,
Needles and Threads,
Flaming Daphne,
Dr. McGee,
Jen,
Katie Reynolds,
Georgia Holden Burnett,
Grabilicious,
Muxaphon,
Root -1,
Gray,
Beth Anderson,
Bernice Roust,
Ellen Meller,
Jay Hoskins,
Trowan,
Ashley,
Setcab,
Jane,
Roberto DePrunk,
Rose Absolute,
Sarah,
Cena,
Kiki T,
D,
Sky Killane,
Eric Whitman,
B,
Monsieur Squirrel,
Fergus Evans,
Anubis the Jackal,
Brandon Craig,
Break the System,
Sean Phillips,
Heidi Ridden,
Lentil,
Clara Volume,
Samantha Raven,
Tabitha Joe Cox, aka Candy,
Fiona McDonald,
Murgatroyd,
Ontologically Unjust,
Stella,
Cindergosa,
Rebecca Prentice,
Crazy Richard,
Dana Bolivian,
Helen_,
Elle Gray,
Melody Nix,
Fiona Punchard,
John,
Lara Bailey,
Ted Delphos,
Kai Lewin,
Vic Parsons,
Patreon user,
Vic Kelly,
Sabrina McVeigh,
Cassius Adair,
Melissa Brooks,
Karakan12,
April Heller,
Sophie Lewis,
Alexandra Lilly,
Claire Scott,
Ariadne Penier,
Lauren O'Nions,
Bernard Pink Chili Bean.
and Lanos. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, bye.